Save the forests by making games. Games for Forests Jam. From March 6th to April 6th, make a game without coding, even with your phone, and win prizes.
What is happening, Hypesters? Welcome back to the weekly HypeHype Live. I'm your host, Shogun. We took a week off last week, updating some stuff in the room here. And now we are back. And we are going today be getting into the games for Forest Jams. I am going to start a build live on the stream here today. And, of course, if anybody has any questions about their own builds, needs some help in the editor, you can ask me for some help at any time, and I will do my best to assist you. What is going on in the chat? I see Player Haunts and PT Jones. Hope you guys are having an awesome Thursday. And I think without too much more ado, we're going to jump into it here. But here's the thing is I don't necessarily have an idea for what I'm going to do for the games for Forest Jam. Infinity, hello, welcome. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, we have the nice HypeHype neon back there. It's really cool. So I think at the beginning of the stream here, maybe we talk a little bit about coming up with ideas and how we could go about doing that. So the jam is the Games for Forest Jams. The idea is to create forest-themed games that draw attention to forest conservation. So we want to make a game that has a little bit of a social conscience to it as well. And I have some basic ideas, but super simple stuff. Wayward, welcome. And that little smiley face guy there as well. Welcome to the stream. So one thing we could do to get started is looking at other kind of forest-themed games. We do also have a couple of templates here. Let's see if we go to create. Yes, we have the forest multiplayer and the remix a tree. What's this forest multiplayer? This might kind of work with the idea that I have. Oh, I guess, what was it? I need to be live streaming to playtest multiplayer. And I'm not currently. But I'm just going to look around in here and see what we're working with this particular template, because I might start here. But I was thinking kind of something more single player. We have some enemies here. I suppose these little monkey guys are maybe some sort of enemy. But I don't know if this is exactly what I'm looking for here. Let's go out of this. I want to just play this template. Can I find it in this row so it doesn't just automatically drop me into the editor? Here we go. I'll find it this way. We have some other stuff in here. Of course, just by searching forest, we find a lot of forest type things. Is this from the... Oh, it's Feast Island remix. Okay. But I guess the Forest multiplayer template is similar to that. I think, though, I maybe don't want to mess with multiplayer for this. I want to keep it a little more simple, maybe single-player experience. And what I was really thinking was that I might kind of do something gameplay-wise that's pretty easy, that I can use a template so that I can maybe focus a little bit more on making a nice environment. Awesome. So PT Jones says working on an achievement system where by completing small environmentally friendly acts, you get some tips and fun quotes about forests and plants. That's really nice. And I was actually, there's this guy I follow on TikTok. God, I can't remember the name right now. But basically, he goes around the forest and picks up garbage. And I was thinking that maybe I would do something along those lines where it's kind of like a parkour level in a nice, pretty forest environment, and you could go around and collect garbage. I'm not sure what game you're talking about there, Wayward Traveler. Planets spin around planet and merge two planes. I guess it's planets. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know that one. Um, but yeah, so with that in mind, I think I'm gonna start with the parkour template, if I can find it. And actually, I'm gonna go back here for a moment. So we're gonna go back here for a second. I just realized I'm gonna turn off my admin features here so that I don't see all the extra stuff. There we go. Okay. So where was I? I'm looking for the new and improved parkour template. Obstacle course, this one. So I don't think I'm going to do a obstacle course per se. Yeah, actually, I don't know if I want to start with this. Like, I kind of like it's got some elements in here that I can use already, but of course they're very obstacle coursey elements. Um, and I actually think I might be better off starting from scratch or maybe from an environment template, because all I really want is the ability to run and jump and the ability to collect things. So some of the things we have in here are pretty cool with like the cannon launcher. We've got teleporters, but I kind of, for what I'm thinking, I don't think that I need much of any of these. So it might end up just being a lot of noise, whereas I could start from scratch and really simplify what I'm looking at. So maybe we start with, for example, this just very simple nature scene. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's a classic. But even beyond that, I think I'm gonna go and I'm gonna start from zero here. We're going full start from scratch, because there's a bunch of different things I want to change. And one is actually, I want to make sure that we have some view distance. And of course, right now, the maximum view distance is not super large. That's going to be raised at some point. But for right now, I have to work within that limitation. So I think one of the things I'm going to do is scale down anything that I'm working with so that it looks like I can see further than you would be able to see with kind of like the standard size characters. All right, and PT here's a little bit of a question. You didn't frame it as a question, but I see the question hidden in there, my man. So PT says the only thing that confuses me about the UI node is the vertical and horizontal layout components. So for the time being, you're avoiding them. Let's look at that, dude, because that's really what I'm here for. And the less time I have to spend thinking about what I need to make and helping you guys with what you need to make, I say the better. So let's go down here and let's get ourselves a user interface node. And let's open it up. And then let's just put something in there. I'm just going to put something for now, a panel. All right. So there we go. We got a panel. It's centered in the screen. And if we go down here, we have a few different settings related to alignment. I guess what are you talking about, like this horizontal layout component? That's actually, it's interesting. What does that even do? Let's put this away. So we have components and we have premates, right? So the premates is some basic stuff. These components, vertical layout, horizontal layout, and wrapping layout. That's actually interesting. I don't know what these do. So in here we have horizontal layout, use content width, use content height. Then we have our alignment stuff. Visible inputs and outputs. So I'm just going to throw a bunch of things in here and see what happens. So like, let's say we throw a button in there. We throw an image in there. The image is now actually in the button. So let's make this like bigger. Okay. What if we turn, I'm going to pull this out. I still want it to be there. Vertical alignment. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, that's kind of cool. Okay. That last one stretched it out, and now it won't stretch back to the normal size again. But we can make it that. So if I drop more stuff in here, it's just going to kind of automatically organize it for me based on the alignments that I set up here, right? So like it puts it automatically at the end, but then I could put it up there. I can move it. And then when I play, we got the buttons there. What happens, I turn it sideways. This might look a little weird for you guys, but still kind of stays the same there. What happened to this one? Why did it get all... Expand, visible, width, height. But yeah, I would say, honestly, I don't use that either. Like I said, I didn't know what it did before we started playing with it there. But it does seem like it might be helpful if you want to do some like row of buttons and you want to have them all kind of nicely organized. It keeps that organized for you. I would say, generally speaking, um, I just do all that manually. So I like to have that control. But if you want to save a little bit of time, it might be nice to use. Uh, it might be nice to use that. Yeah, PT Jones, like Yelp has done some really cool stuff with the UI node. He's done some really cool stuff there. Um, so he's got some skills with the UI node. I saw another question there. What does the magnifying glass logic do? So I assume by magnifying glass logic, you are speaking of, where did it go? The value inspector, right? This is the value inspector. The icon is a magnifying glass. So the value inspector is actually a super handy tool. So it can be used for many different things, but essentially you give it a target. Let's put an object in here. Um, just a basic model. We want to keep this example simple. How about a box? That's cool. We got a nice new stylized box here. We're going to make that the target for our value inspector, right? So now the value inspector can tell us all kinds of information about this box. By default, it's going to be set up here to object position vector because that's going to be a really common use for the value inspector, is to get the position of an object within the game world. And so that's the position vector, and that's essentially the X, Y, and Z coordinates. And now this value inspector can send that position vector to any other tool that uses a vector. For example, like the vector transform, which is going to be changing a little bit in the next update. We'll talk about that when the update's coming. You know what else? Like look at component can use a vector, a position vector. There's a bunch of different tools that can use a position vector. But we can do a lot more than that, right? Like if we go physical here, we can get the speed of the object if it's moving. So you got like a car racing game. You want to know how fast the different cars are going. Value inspector. You can get velocity, which is some weird math stuff that my brain doesn't necessarily fully understand, but that's kind of like speed and direction is velocity. You get a bunch of other stuff here. Is it active? Is it a sensor? Is it starting sleeping? You know, basically any node that you can use, pretty much any node that can be applied to an object, you can pull data from that node. So you can see here when I choose the fetch from, right now I'm looking at these top ones. The base, like object, is how we get the position information, and physical is how we get physical information. But we could really go to any node here, and as long as that node exists, we can pull information from it. And I mean exists like within that object that we're targeting. So, you know, I don't know. I could say, is there a collision trigger in there? There's not currently, so I can't get that information. But if we added a collision trigger, I could see, is it enabled? Is it disabled after first? Does it share with glue? And all of these might be useful pieces of information depending on what you're doing that you would want to share with another node. So really kind of like endless uses for the value inspector. But I would say super common one is going to be fetching the position within the game world of an object. Another probably fairly common one would be pulling that speed data, for example. Okay, Teleporting to spawn when you die is probably a little more complicated of a thing. But there's a number of different ways you could go about that. But you're definitely going to need multiple tools to do it. All right. And then Wayward is trying to do a zoom in. I'm not sure what the tiny town. Let's take a look at Tiny Town. Let's see what this zoom is all about. Do. Do I need to look up PT? Tiny Town gives me too many results. We can go right to PT here. And which one are we looking at? HypeHype. Okay, it wants me to flip my phone. I'm not going to do that just because you guys won't be able to tell the difference. How's it going to make me? I seem to be able to continue here. Did I just break it? So snapping the text node, there's a reason for that. I can show you that one. It's that's a simple fix. I'm not going to worry about going into the rest of that right now because for some reason it's not working. But so when you have text here, right? So we have text, and the text is snapping to the grid. Even though you go in here and you can see my snapping mode is free movement, but that's because we have logic snap is always on by default. So at the bottom here, we hit that disable logic snap. Now we can place that text node wherever we want. So yeah, that's one I think has fooled a lot of people because you don't really think about necessarily, especially when you're trying to use the text node as like a 3D text object. You don't necessarily think of it still as a node, but it is. So when logic snap is on, the text node is still going to snap to that. You know, you might have other nodes with similar thing, you know, for example, a spawner. You might want to be placing the spawner in a very specific area, but it's still snapping to that grid. So you just go disable logic snap. There you go. You can place it anywhere. But of course, you got to remember now that all of your logic nodes are not going to snap. So I generally like to keep that on because it helps keep the logic tidy. But definitely there's a few nodes where you're going to want to turn it off. But yeah, the camera zoom thing, yeah, I guess I need to see it in action more to understand what's the goal there. So let's see if I go back into this, will it load this time? Aha, there we go. Spot the difference. No, it's for some reason this screen. Can my pen do it? No, it's getting stuck here. I don't know if that's just my device or PT maybe. Something up in this hype. I see. Aha, it was like a little mini version of the game there. Okay, and then it just zooms in and then basically goes to a new scene. So what is essentially happening there is pretty straightforward, right? You just kind of have to hide it. So let's go back to empty. I'm not going to bother remixing because it'll just be too complicated, right? So let's do an empty scene here. Do we have something that looks like a map? I think there might be. I don't necessarily want a globe. Let's just take this cartoon map, right? Scale it up a little bit, right? We'll set our camera to this position. Set camera. Maybe center it a little bit more. Set camera. Okay. All right. So let's say, okay, for sake of argument, we're going to just pretend that there is a picture on this map, right? And we're going to zoom into a certain area of it, and then it's going to essentially load another scene. So what we're going to do is probably well, first let's do the zoom in animation, which we can achieve two different ways. We can adjust the FOV, which will do kind of like a zoom, or we can actually move the camera, which will do kind of like what in filmmaking would be called like a dolly move, where the camera actually moves. I think for this example, probably a little bit easier. We'll just edit the FOV in the camera, right? And so just really quickly, if we want to see what that means. So right now the FOV is 40. If we set it down to like 20 and we reset the view, you can see there we have a much tighter view now of the map. If we set it, like 50, reset the view, we have a nice wide. Now we're already in the view. So now if I go even lower, like 10, you can see, boom, we've kind of zoomed in there. So let's say our starting value is at 50, and then we're just going to grab we want to do a wave transform here. And this is going to, start value is going to be 50. Our end value there, 10, seemed like a kind of nice zoom in. How much time do we want it to take? Let's say it's going to take 2 seconds. Duration out, we want to set to 0 because we actually only want to go one direction. The wave generator has the ability to go 2 directions, right? You can go forward and then you can go to the start value to end value, and then you can go back to the start value. And even if you want to, you can just loop that so it happens endlessly. But in this situation, we only want to go from start to end. We don't want it to come back. So we set that duration out to 0. And then we just want to, this value output is going to go to the camera FOV. And then let's just say, just for really simple, we're going to give this some physics, unmovable object. We're going to put object touch on there. And we're going to say on touch start, we're going to execute this FOV change. So now already the zoom in is going to work. Oops, it's happening automatically. Let's turn that executing off. So boom, we're going to tap the map and we're going to zoom in on it. All right, so that's step 1. Now we need to hide the transition, because step 2 would be go to another camera scene, right? But we're not going to do that quite yet because there's going to be a transition and we don't want it to just pop from like the zoom in and then we hard cut to the next scene. We want to make it a little more smooth, which is what PT had done there. And again, there's a few different ways you can do this. I'm just reminding myself of what different options we have here. It would be really nice if in the camera we had an exposure setting, but I do not believe we do have that. So we're going to have to fake it another way. All right, so I'm gonna well, I don't need to worry about saving this. I can load the autosave, but I just want to go back again and look at PT's example here. So right, we tap, we go here. It says spot the difference. This guy's different. This thing's different, and then we do this and we zoom in. Okay, so you just that's nice. All right. So, and you can kind of see there it's actually not perfectly hiding the transition. Because you see this for a frame before it goes to the other one, which is why personally, like, this would be a lot nicer if we could do it with exposure. But the camera does not have an exposure setting. So we have to hide it some other way. And what PT did there was used, I guess, just a text node. So let's go back to this. Yes, let's load the autosave. So PT's got a text node there. Which is using one of these emojis, the white one. Oh, I already have it there because I've used that one before as well. You could go circle or square. Let's take the square. We're going to make that 3D, large. And now the next part we're going to do, we are going to turn off that so that we can place this more accurately. We're going to glue that to an object so that we can scale it beyond the, so we can scale it beyond the scale of the text node font sizes. So I'm just going to get a small ball. This is usually the object I like to use for this purpose. Now let's actually, I do want to snap to the grid for this one. So this now we're going to glue to this small ball. The small ball is going to start scaled. Well, let's just do it that way. Scale it all the way down. It is also, we don't care about it being visible. And this, we also want to start the text node here. Okay, we need to scale this back up or I can't select the text node. The text node we want to start invisible as well. And so what we're going to do here, this move takes about 2 seconds. So maybe we'll go grab an interval node here. This guy will be set to 1 second. And then we'll have, just so we can see the nodes, I'm not going to embed anything too much here. We'll do a vector transform. And that'll be scale. Actually, we don't need to use a vector we can just use a normal transform. So let's go transform. This is going to be scale. Target is going to be this ball. And we're just going to scale it up big. Let's try like 10. But actually, we need this to happen over time. So we're going to use a wave generator again. And that is going to start value 0, end value 10, sending its output to the amount of the transform there. So on time here, we are going to activation visible on for our text node. Then we're going to execute that wave generator. And then we don't actually need to execute the transform because the wave generator is going to do that for us. And then again, we want this to start at the same time as this. So that's when we that's when we execute the interval. So now we should get boom. Oh, it's freaking out. It doesn't like that, huh? Oh, because it's looping. All right, and we want this to be a 1 second change. And then I think what's happening is because the ball and the text node are not perfectly aligned with each other. Can I select that ball, please? No. All right, let's just move that out of the way. Let's get the ball right on the grid, and then let's get this right on the same grid. So what was happening was, as the ball was scaling, since the text node was a little bit behind it, it was pushing it back, and it pushed it behind the map. It does still do a bit of I think that's an order of operation thing. So what we want to do here is actually, we want the text node to become visible after the wave generator has started, because that's why we're getting that pop at the beginning. We're still getting that pop at the beginning, but you get the idea. So now we're here. We got this screen full white. If we wanted it to be black instead, we could go into that text node and we could say color black. And then boom, it brings that black screen. And so now basically what we're going to do is the opposite thing. So let's just put something here so that we can see it. Maybe like a house, something kind of big. Grab one of these fantasy houses, right? We're going to put this kind of like over here. Maybe like a nice tree next to it. Doesn't really matter. I don't know why I'm taking the time to like build a little area here. But anyway, so now we have that, right? And so this is the scene that we want to go to. So we're going to grab another camera. Boop, 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 boop. This camera is not enabled, but I'm going to enable it right now so that we can get the view how we want it to be. So we're going to kind of come in here. We zoom out a little bit so we can fully see. Then we're going to set the camera. Now we're going to disable that camera and go back to the first camera and turn that one back on. So that's our starting camera, and the second one is going to be our ending camera. And now what we want to do here is essentially the opposite of what we did here. So we can take our whole setup here, although again, I'm going to need to move this so that I can also select the ball and this logic. Duplicate all of that. Oh, why did it still didn't give me the ball? Oh, I guess because let's do this again. Because they're glued, it doesn't matter. It selects both of them. Does it? I don't know. No, it's definitely not selected the ball. We go here, then we select the ball, then we select these three. Bring those over here. Yes, that's cool. That's what I wanted. And then here we bring that back to there. Okay, so now we're doing the opposite thing, but what we want to do here is we want to start at 10 and scale it down to 0. And then again, we want to put this kind of pretty much right in front of our camera. Let's see, that might be good enough. We might need to go a little bit closer, but we'll find out. So now, again, we're gonna do some order of operations stuff. When this finishes, I think we're gonna want, so we can use this wave generator on loop end. On loop end, we want to, first of all, start executing the second one here. And then we also want to activate this other camera. On loop end, activate, enabled, on. And that, actually, we didn't even need this one. That should be enough, I think. Let's see. Boop. Oh, no, it wasn't enough. Okay. Oh, because this isn't visible. This we want to start visible. Boop. Zoom in. Doop. Zoom out. I wonder what is those little flicks it's getting, though. It shouldn't be doing that. But there's a basic setup. Let's see, what have I missed while I was figuring all that out? PT says you could maybe want to control the FOV with the joystick, which that's something you can do as well. Okay, I was thinking is you see the world, you see a tree, tap the tree, and then go see the forest. Okay, I'm going to come back to you in a second there, player haunts, about the respawning a player thing. Because depending on what you're doing, it could be fairly easy. But there is a few different ways that you could do it. Okay, so I think we've covered, though, basically this thing. There is a little bit of a glitch there that I'm not super happy with. And actually, what I would usually try and do to deal with something like that, at least the second one, I think we could handle with just a little bit of a delay. So like here, instead of this immediately putting the camera, it's going to start the wave transform, and then we're just going to get a super short delay. You know, maybe like 0.1, oops, not 0.4, 0.1 second, and then it'll activate the camera. So now this on loop end will execute that interval. Yeah, okay, so we can cut out the second snap. That first snap, though, I think, again, maybe we're going to try and do the same thing where this is doing both of those, right? Yeah, so we're going to, let's duplicate this. And again, we're going to change that to 0.1. And this one is only going to execute the text. This one is only going to execute the wave generator and this second one. And so what that does is it starts to transform before the text becomes visible. So you shouldn't see that glitch. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was looking for. We just needed a little delay there. And that's sometimes some order of operations stuff can really get you. And sometimes even if you're executing things on the same frame, even if they're in the right order, it might not give you exactly what you want. So you got to like add a little bit of a delay in there. But there we go. So now we got a nice, really smooth transition there. Hopefully, in the future, when we get some more improved kind of rendering tools and stuff, maybe we can get some more camera features that would make that a little bit easier. Because if we could do that whole thing with exposure in the camera, just kind of like turn the exposure down so like everything goes black. And then when we go to the new camera, it starts with the exposure down. Then we turn the exposure up so that everything becomes visible. Sorry, I hit the camera there. It would be, it's basically the same concept, but you don't have to do this little hacky thing where you're scaling an object to obscure the screen. Okay, so now let's go check out what Player Haunts was talking about with the spawn in the enemy. So my question to you first is, in your game, what is the objective? So essentially, I'm going to assume maybe it's like a platformer. Or it could be 3D, it could be 2D, it doesn't really matter. You're probably collecting some stuff. You have some enemies to kill. You have an objective where you want to get to. So if when your character dies, you don't need to save any information, you can just restart the game, right? You restart, it'll move the player back to the beginning, and then you don't have to worry about teleporting or anything like that. And then similar to that, if you have, say, a score and you don't mind that when the player teleports back to the beginning, all the collectibles will come back, you could save the score with the player save and then still just restart the game, let the player spawn, they'll save their score, and then they can go through the thing and collect again. Of course, the downside to that is any collectibles will also respawn. So in theory, you could go collect all the collectibles, die, start over, collect all the collectibles again, and just like kind of endlessly get more score. You probably don't want that. And then you would have to build a bunch of extra logic so that things don't respawn once they've been collected. That can get kind of complicated. And then the final option, of course, is essentially what is in the character in something like the platformer template. This one. And what this does is when it detects that the player has died, like say we fall, boom. Well, here we just die, but we do have in here. Let's turn the logic on. Let's go to the builder panel. We do have checkpoints here, so let's just make this a little bit bigger. It doesn't need it. We're gonna do kind of sloppy. It's all right. And we put a checkpoint here. So now we have a checkpoint, right? So boom, we take care of that guy. We go up here. We hit our checkpoint. And now, boom, we die. It brings us back to the checkpoint, right? And so what that's doing is using some logic inside the player. So if we go to the player controls here, and let's see if I can find it. This is probably what is controlling it, maybe. We definitely have a vector transform somewhere. It's probably this one. Yes. Or is it? It seems like it could be this one. But no, that's connected to the controller. That's movement. Where is the game success? That's the end. Game fail. Is it using this same one? Maybe it is. Goal is to make the strongest and biggest ant colony, so if you restart, all of your progress is gone. Okay, so you want to teleport back to the start without losing the progress is I think what I got from that comment. Bup, 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 bup. And probably the second option that I was talking about is going to be a little complicated, right? Because you're going to have a lot of stuff you're potentially going to have to save. I'm not going to worry about this because I don't know exactly how that's built, and I think I can probably show this easier, again, if we just start from scratch, right? Because we don't need to build all the logic of everything. We just need to make the character restart at the beginning if it dies. So let's go here and let's bring in, I am going to bring in a pre-made character, though. I kind of like with stuff like this, pre-mates are great. Let's use the cat since the cat is kind of, at least it's an animal, right? What is wrong with this guy? Maybe we don't want to use the cat. Oh, it's because it's a follower. It's not a control. We want the simple player cat. There we go. There we go. Now we got our cat. We're just going to pretend this is an ant. And again, we're going to look in our player controls, edits. And what are these doing? That's a raycast. That's looking at the ground. But what I'm going to do is just to make it a little simple for this example, I'm going to make it not based on the player dying. I'm just going to make it so that we can make it happen with the push of a button. And one thing I am going to note about this the way that I'm going to do this is with the vector transform. And I mentioned it earlier, in the next update, the vector transform is going to change. So keep that in mind when you're building this. I can't say exactly when the next update is out. We're hoping it's going to be out fairly soon. But there is some kinks to work out from what I understand. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add a button. We're going to put a button in here. We're going to say the alignment of the button is the center at the top. Oops. Let's do a new one here. Let's say reset. Okay, so now we have this button up here, reset. We're going to pretend that whatever your logic is that handles the player dying, the output from that is the same as the output from this button. Cool? Agreed. Okay, so now we have vector transform here. We're going to add that in, and we're going to say, first we need to know where the cat is when it starts. The absolute world coordinates. Whoa, what is that light? I have like some crazy light coming through here. I should have closed the curtains, and I didn't. So that's like some sunlight reflecting off a building across the street. Nice. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about it. Let's continue. So we want to know the exact position that this character starts in. And I think to make it a little bit easier, let's snap it to the grid. So it starts a little bit in the air, not a big deal. When you start, it drops down to the ground. And now we know that we're at 2, 1, 0. X2, Y1, Z0. So now we can go into our vector transform. We want x2, y1, z0. We want this move to be immediate. We want it to be a move. We want it to be an absolute transform. And so this is one of the things that's going to change a little bit. But what we have right now is global transform, local transform, absolute transform. Absolute transform will move the object to the exact coordinates that you put into the vector transform. And that's what we want in this case. And so what we would do here is on the button press, so the player dies. Presumably when the player dies, there's some sort of animation that happens, maybe some sort of effect that goes off. And then at the end of that, what you're going to want to do is visible, activation, visible, off. You turn your character invisible so it cannot be seen. And then at the same time, we're going to execute this vector transform. And then when the vector transform is done on loop end, boom, visual, activation, visible, on. We turn the visibility back on. And that should be, let's, so we can more clearly see, let's put some stuff on the ground here. Let's maybe grab, like a tile map. No, tile set. Yeah, that's why it was in premates. You know, it doesn't, that's just simple grass. So the grass is on the ground. Let's paint some. Let's erase some. Paint. We just need some reference so that we can see that we're moving around within this world, right? And then we want, again, I just want an X, letter X. Cool. We're going to put this on the ground underneath the cat so that we know this is our starting point, right? There we go. So we see the X there's our starting point. We can run around and like, oh no, we ran into some enemies and they've killed me. I've died. Reset. No, it doesn't work. Oh, I know why. That's user error. This vector transform's not targeting anything. There we go. Now it's targeting the cat. Boom, 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 boom. We run around and something happens. Oh no, we died. Reset. There we are. Back at the start. Hey, Potato in the house. What's going on, man? And Vic's here too. Good to see you, Vic. So that is the most simple way. Like, obviously, you're probably going to have some other layers in here. Maybe you have some sounds going on. Like I said, some effects. Something happens when your ant dies. But once all of that is done, turn the ant invisible, vector transform it back to the starting coordinates, turn it visible again. You're probably going to have to, like, if you have health, you're going to have to, like, reset the health. You know, all of that good stuff. But yeah, that is the basics of teleporting a player back to the beginning. And what are we looking at? Oh my goodness, our hour is up and I did not create anything of my own. I only answered questions, but that's awesome. I hope that the demonstrations I did here were a little bit helpful. I'm not in a super hurry to leave today. A lot of the times I have something that I need to immediately run to afterwards. But if there are any more questions, I can stick around for a little bit of overtime if you guys need it. But if there are no more questions, probably going to call it a day here. And I'm going to check the different chats, because I noticed, and actually I meant to mention this earlier, but maybe it's better now that there are more people. But so if you were watching 2 weeks ago, you were here towards the end of the stream, something happened to my chat and I didn't notice the chat wasn't updating. I just thought that, like, people got a little bit quiet, because it happens sometimes when I'm sitting here demoing stuff in the editor. Like, people are paying attention. They're not necessarily talking. So I didn't realize there were people talking. And as soon as I ended the stream, the chat caught up, and there was like this whole string of chats that I had missed. So if you had asked a question or said something nice to me and I didn't respond at the end of the last stream, I apologize. It was not on purpose. I just didn't see that there were messages coming in. But it does seem now that the chat is updating. I can see in the YouTube window, the chat looks the same as it does in my chat window. So I don't think I missed anything. PT's asking, am I already working on any Forest games? And the answer is no. That was kind of my goal for the stream today, was to get something started. But I do have a couple of ideas, and I'm happy to spend my time helping you guys as opposed to working on my own things. I can do that on my own time. But I will get something started probably this weekend. And I will be back here next week working on it, and again, answering questions, trying to help you guys out with your own builds. And if news is good and there's a new update, we'll be taking a look at the new update next week as well. So little teaser for that. I hope we get to show it to you. There's some cool stuff in there. It's a little bit of a bigger one. I am noticing, actually, that my TikTok chat has not updated at all. So that's interesting. So if you're watching on TikTok and I've been ignoring you, like I just talked about, I apologize. Because according to my TikTok window, I've gotten no chats on TikTok. And usually, even if nobody's chatting, it's constantly showing me that, like, people are joining and leaving and stuff like that. So something is going on there. It does seem to be live, though. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about it now. I think that is going to do it for the stream today. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming and hanging out with me. And thank you for giving me some questions, some interesting stuff to look at and to explain in the editor. As I've probably mentioned many times now, it is my favorite thing to do is to help you guys create the things that you want to create, because that's what we're here for, is to enable everybody to make the games that they want to make. So I'm happy that I was able to do that today. I hope it was helpful for you guys, and I will see you guys back here next week, same time, same channels, pretty much doing the same thing, building games for forests. That is the jam. If you're not aware, the Games for Forests jam is ongoing until April 6th. You've still got plenty of time. April 6th is, more than 2 weeks away, and that is a lifetime in HypeHype. You can do so much in 2 weeks in HypeHype. So I hope, if you haven't already, that you have a think and you get started on a hype for the Games for Forests jam. And until next time, I'm Shogun. You can catch me in the app at Shogun. And this has been the HypeHype Live. All the best, you guys. Hope you have a great Thursday, Friday, and weekend. Peace out, y'all.